My name is David Lawrence, 73 years old, retired civil engineer, husband to my wife Margaret for nearly 50 years, and father of two daughters, Claire and Ruth. I've lived long enough to know that life is full of surprises. But nothing, not even war or tragedy, prepares a man for the kind of betrayal that creeps into his bones and leaves him hollow. I thought I'd seen everything. Until the day I went to visit my son-in-law and saw my wife's car parked near his gate. That morning, the sky was gray, heavy with the kind of clouds that promised rain but delivered silence. I'd been planning to visit my daughter Ruth for weeks. She'd recently given birth to her second child, and I wanted to check in, bring some homemade stew, maybe fix the old wooden swing in their yard. Ruth's husband, Daniel, was a polite man, quiet, respectful, though distant at times. Margaret was supposed to visit her sister that day. She'd left early, wearing that floral scarf she loved, carrying a basket of muffins she'd baked. We'd kissed goodbye, like always, and she'd told me not to worry about lunch. But something about her tone felt off. There was hesitation, a flicker in her voice. Still, I brushed it off. 50 years of marriage teaches you to trust, even when doubt whispers in your ear. It was around noon when I decided to drive over to Ruth's place. I took the old truck, the one Margaret always called a relic, and hummed along to a faded country tune as the miles slipped by. When I turned the corner onto their street, something caught my eye. A silver sedan. License plate ending in 427. Margaret's car. It was parked discreetly, not directly in front of the gate, but a few yards down the lane, half hidden behind a large oak. The windows were up. The scarf she wore this morning was draped on the dashboard. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Maybe she'd stopped by to see Ruth too? But Ruth had mentioned she wasn't expecting visitors. Curiosity clawed at me. I parked a little further away and walked quietly toward the house. That's when I heard it, laughter. Not the light, innocent kind, but low, intimate, wrong. Through the half-open living room window came voices, Margaret's and Daniel's. I froze. You shouldn't have come here today, Daniel's voice said softly. I had to, Margaret whispered. He suspects nothing. We have to talk about us. For a moment, my world stopped spinning. Us. That single word tore through me like a blade. I stepped closer, my breath shallow. Through the narrow gap in the curtain, I saw Margaret, my wife of half a century, standing in Daniel's living room. Her hand rested on his shoulder. They were too close. Too comfortable. He's old, Daniel, she murmured. He barely notices anymore. I've given him my best years. I deserve to live before it's too late. You know I can't do this forever, Daniel said. If Ruth ever finds out. She won't, Margaret interrupted. She's your wife, but she'll never understand you the way I do. My heart pounded so loud I thought it might give me away. My wife. My daughter's husband. I wanted to burst through that door and end it right there. But something, maybe dignity, maybe shock, kept me frozen. I backed away quietly, my hands trembling. By the time I reached my truck, I could hardly breathe. That evening, Margaret came home humming. She set her purse on the table and kissed my cheek like nothing had happened. She even asked about my visit to Ruth's house. I stared at her, the woman I had loved since I was 23, and realized I didn't know her anymore. Every smile, every gentle touch, now felt rehearsed. That night, I lay awake beside her, listening to her steady breathing, wondering how long it had been going on. A week? A month? A year? I thought about Ruth, my sweet, trusting daughter. The way she adored her husband, how she called him her rock. And all I could think was, if I tell her now, it will destroy her. But if I do nothing, it'll rot inside. So I chose silence, for now. But inside, something dark began to form. Revenge doesn't come to you all at once. It seeps in, like rain through a cracked roof. Over the next few weeks, I became an actor in my own life. Margaret continued her visits to her sister, and I played the loving husband who didn't know a thing. I smiled, nodded, even helped her pack. But I started watching. I installed a small dash camera inside her car one morning, a gift, I told her, for safety. She smiled, thanked me, and never realized it was recording her every trip. Within days, I had everything I needed. Recordings of her parking near Daniel's house. Videos of her entering through the side gate. Even a few words caught on audio, enough to prove the affair beyond doubt. Each time I watched, the rage grew. But I also felt a strange calm. Because now, I knew exactly what to do. This wouldn't end with shouting or broken dishes. It would end with public truth. I wanted them both to feel what I felt: shame, loss, and humiliation. Ruth's birthday was coming up. She planned a small family gathering at her home. Just a few relatives, some neighbors, and friends. Margaret was, of course, in charge of the cake and decorations. It was perfect. A room full of witnesses. A celebration. I spent the next few days preparing a little surprise. Using my old engineering skills, I set up a discreet projector and Bluetooth speaker system inside Ruth's living room, small enough to blend with her decor. Then I edited a short video, a compilation of clips from Margaret's car camera, mixed with a few audio snippets of her conversations with Daniel. Nothing explicit, but enough to be undeniable. The title card read, "To the Truth That Lies Behind Closed Doors." The evening arrived. Ruth looked radiant, holding her baby in one arm, greeting guests with laughter. Daniel played the perfect host, and Margaret, wearing her favorite pearl necklace, smiled like a queen. She looked at me often, probably wondering why I was so quiet. I simply smiled back. When it was time for speeches, Ruth stood up. "Dad, would you like to say something?" she asked warmly. I nodded, rising slowly. "Just a few words," I said. I walked to the center of the room, holding my glass of wine. "I've lived a long life," I began. "Made mistakes, learned lessons. But the one thing I've always believed in is truth. Because without it, there's no family, no love, no trust." The room went silent. Margaret's eyes flickered with confusion. "So tonight," I continued, "I'd like to share something important with everyone here. Something that belongs to this family. Something that needs to be seen." I pressed a button on the remote in my pocket. The lights dimmed. The projector hummed to life. And then, their faces appeared on the screen. Margaret. Daniel. In his living room. Her hand on his cheek. "He suspects nothing. You're the only one who understands me." Gasps filled the room. Ruth's wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. Daniel stood frozen. Margaret turned pale, clutching her chest. I didn't say a word. I just watched as the truth unraveled in front of everyone. When the video ended, silence hung like smoke. Ruth's voice broke it first. "Mom, is this real?" Margaret tried to speak, but her words came out as sobs. "Ruth, it's not what you think." Daniel stammered, "Ruth, please." But Ruth screamed, "Don't you dare. Don't you dare talk to me." She turned to her mother, tears streaming. "You betrayed me. Both of you." Margaret collapsed into a chair. Daniel buried his face in his hands. I quietly set my glass down and walked out. By the time I reached my truck, I could hear shouting from inside. Ruth's voice cracked with fury, Margaret's with desperation. I didn't look back. For the first time in months, I felt free. In the days that followed, everything fell apart. Ruth filed for divorce. Daniel moved out, his reputation in ruins. No one wanted to be associated with a man who'd slept with his wife's mother. Margaret tried to call me, to explain, to beg for forgiveness. I didn't answer. A week later, she showed up at our house. I opened the door just enough to see her face, puffy, red, broken. "David, please," she whispered. "I made a mistake. I was lonely. I never meant to hurt you. I looked at her, the woman who'd shared my bed, my dreams, my life, and felt nothing. You didn't just hurt me, Margaret, I said. You destroyed our daughter. Our family. There's no coming back from that. I handed her a small envelope, divorce papers ID already signed. Her hands shook as she took them. Where will I go? She whispered. That's not my concern anymore, I said coldly. Maybe to your sisters. Maybe to Daniel. I'm sure he's free now. And then I closed the door. People talk about revenge like it's a storm, violent, loud, chaotic. But the real kind? The kind that lasts? It's quiet. It's watching your betrayers crumble under the weight of their own choices. Ruth eventually found peace. She sold the house, moved closer to me, and focused on her children. I helped her fix up a new place. Daniel tried to apologize once, sent a letter, begging for forgiveness. Ruth tore it to pieces. Margaret drifted. I heard she was renting a small flat on the edge of town. Alone. Sometimes, I drive past that neighborhood. I see her sitting by the window, staring out at the road, waiting for something that'll never come. And I don't feel joy or anger, just a hollow kind of justice. Because betrayal doesn't deserve mercy. A few months later, I was sitting on my porch, watching the sunset, the same spot where Margaret and I once shared coffee every morning. My granddaughter toddled up to me, her little hand sticky with jam. Grandpa, she said, why are you sad? I smiled faintly. I'm not sad, sweetheart. Just remembering. Mom says you're her hero, she said proudly. I chuckled softly. No, sweetheart. I just did what was right. But deep down, I knew the truth. I hadn't just done what was right. I'd done what was necessary. Sometimes, to save what's left of a family, you have to burn down what's rotting inside it. Nearly a year later, I received a call from Margaret's sister. Margaret had suffered a mild stroke. She wanted to see me one last time. Against my better judgment, I went. When I entered the hospital room, she looked frail, her once bright eyes dim. She smiled weakly. You came. I did, I said quietly. I don't expect forgiveness, she whispered. I just wanted to say, I never stopped loving you. I looked at her for a long moment. You loved the idea of being loved, Margaret. But you forgot what love means. She wept softly. I was a fool. Yes, I said. You were. I turned to leave, but paused at the door. For what it's worth, I said, I hope you find peace. But don't expect it from me. She closed her eyes. That was the last time I saw her alive. When she passed a few weeks later, Ruth asked if I'd attend the funeral. I said yes, not for Margaret, but for closure. Standing by her grave, I felt the weight of 50 years, love, betrayal, loss, all fading into dust. Ruth slipped her hand into mine. You did the right thing, Dad, she said softly. I nodded, staring at the headstone. I just wish she'd remembered who she was, I murmured. Ruth whispered, she lost, and in that moment, I realized something profound. Revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about reclaiming yourself. Margaret's betrayal had taken everything, my trust, my pride, my peace, but exposing it had given me something greater. Truth. And truth, no matter how painful, is the only kind of justice that endures. It's been 2 years since that day. I still live in the same house, still drive the same old truck. Some nights, I sit on the porch and listen to the wind through the trees. Do I miss her? Sometimes. Do I forgive her? Never. But I've learned something important. Betrayal doesn't kill love instantly. It burns it slowly until all that's left is ash. And from that ash, if you're lucky, comes strength. Because the day I saw my wife's car near my son-in-law's gate, I didn't just lose a marriage. I found my spine again. And that was worth every ounce of pain.